Hey guys, so welcome back to today's video. So I was asked by Tim in the comments of a previous video to take a bit of a deeper dive into neuromuscular training. And you know, one of the things I've loved about doing these videos over the last sort of few months is it gives me an opportunity to really sort of organize and consolidate my thoughts around training. And when I started to sort of really think about neuromuscular training, is first and foremost, neuromuscular training is basically the brain and the body working synergistically together, right? And that is a skill. That's a pathway that we can refine and we can train. And when you look at this from an injury rehabilitation standpoint, it's that when we land and change directions in optimal positions, we are less likely to get hurt than if we don't. And so this is something that we constantly need to get better at. I don't think we'll ever master it. You know, just like the martial artist will practice every day on the very fundamentals of their sport, and a jazz musician will practice their scales every single day, I do think that as a human being, we should practice our movement scales every single day. And this is something that I truly believe, right? Because if you're going to be trying to put heavy bars on your back, you're going to be playing chaotic sports, you know, you're going to be doing these things. We need to make sure that movement at high speeds and movement in different environments is second nature. And that is what training is for me. It's preparation. So we're preparing our body and our minds for what it is we need to do, so that we don't have to think so hard about where to put our foot and how to land, that we're so well versed in those movements because we've practiced them over and over again that they just become second nature. And that is ultimately what I believe neuromuscular training is. Because, you know, yes, my goals for me personally are to become the fittest, fastest, strongest version of myself, but none of that is achievable unless it's underpinned with good basic movements. You know, learning how to control my body through space, learning where to put my foot if I'm running at high speeds and I need to change direction, learning how to jump and absorb force. Because it's very easy, I believe, to get sort of caught up in the sort of shiny object syndrome. You know, yes, we want to look good, but if we go too far down that road where we're just developing the hardware of the body, i.e. laying down more muscle tissue, but never really learning how to now utilize or control that greater force that we're now able to produce, then unfortunately I think we end up putting ourselves in harm's way. And the way I like to think about this is that, you know, you don't give a Ferrari to a new driver. When you're driving something quickly, things come at you quicker. You know, your reaction time needs to be quicker. Your understanding of the nuances of when to brake, how to brake, when to turn when traveling at 100, 150 miles an hour is way different than traveling at 30. So you always want to make sure you're upgrading your ability to handle your body whilst you upgrade your ability to produce force and the engine in the car, so to speak. And I think that is something that is easier said than done, because I do think that, you know, if you've watched me training in the background of this video, a lot of the stuff I'm doing is very basic. I just do it often. I do it all the time. And that's, for me, is sort of, it's my warm-up. I kind of just treat that like the fundamentals. You know, the jazz musician practices his scales every single day. I practice my movement scales every single day. And I think that is ultimately what refines and builds this neuromuscular connection. It's providing an opportunity or a period in time, i.e. our time where we train, where we are focused on upgrading our ability to stabilize our body through space, like landing mechanics, you know, one leg versus the other leg. You know, how are we lunging? Where do we put our body down to absorb force if we're moving laterally? You know, these are things that we need to make sure are so second nature, because that is ultimately what an athlete is. An athlete has rhythm, timing, coordination, can read their environment and navigate their body through that environment both quickly and efficiently. You know, and in order to achieve that, you need to become a master of movement. And that requires you to practice it constantly, every day. Dedicate some time to just becoming better at these basic movements, strict walking lunges, hop and sticks, you know, jumping, basic low-level jumping, you know, because these are the things that underpin our goals of becoming fitter, faster, stronger, or laying down more muscle tissue. You know, these are the things that are going to keep us healthy into later life, which ultimately is my overarching goal. You know, I want to be the fittest, fastest, strongest version of myself at 50, at 60. Now the biggest obstacle to me achieving that is an injury. The quickest way I'm going to get injured is by doing something silly or not moving efficiently. So again, it's like, this is what I class as my multivitamin for movement. It's to constantly be training the mind and the body to not only absorb force, but to produce force, and to do that in many different environments, off one leg, off two legs, you know, moving laterally, moving backwards. It's making sure that any potential movement that I could do in the world that I've practiced over and over again. And ultimately that's what it is, right? Because I'm no longer an athlete. I want to be the best human athlete that I can be, and I want to be highly physically capable. I want to be in shape, and that requires that I practice a lot of things. I practice moving my body in a variety of different ways and training myself to become more efficient at that. And that for me is what neuromuscular training is. It's building efficiency through movement and allowing us to access more of our current capabilities, and then constantly upgrading that ability whilst we upgrade the hardware and our force producing, so that we are developing ourselves into a better athlete, not just a bigger athlete or a more defined athlete, if that makes sense. So hopefully that gives you a bit of context as to my thoughts around neuromuscular training and why I believe it's important and why I practice that training, that mind-muscle connection repeatedly over and over again, because training is more than physical. It should be more than physical. You don't want to look the part, you want to be the part, okay? And that requires us to back up how we look. You know, how we look should be a byproduct of the life we live, and not just the facade. So that's why I believe we should always be developing that neuromuscular connection, and how I believe it sort of keeps us injury free, right? So, and that is ultimately the goal. So hopefully you found this useful. Any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments section below. If you want coaching, want me to help you out with your coaching, please follow the link in the description, and I will see you guys tomorrow.